sitting in such cursed positions. Okay. Hello. I would like to preface everything I'm about to say with a very strong advisory that you turn on closed captions, because while I am trying to control myself, I have lots of ADHD propelling my stupid mouth, and I'm sure I will inevitably end up speaking too fast for the average person to understand. Now, I do actually have one more disclaimer to make. I am going to head this off with the claim and make my points through that lens because I don't want anyone to feel strung along, and my audience will self-select via cognitive dissonance, so let's rip the band-aid now. Who is the Canon Rosa?
Aerith. It's Aerith.
The worst of the bunch should be gone now, but no matter who you are, I appreciate your time, and I am not trying to change anyone's opinion. I only ask for your open-mindedness as I present my own. Alright, preamble stuff over. We're starting with the weakest points first and going up from there. In the credits of Rebirth, all Square Enix promotional material that I could find, and every recording of the Rebirth Orchestra performing the Loveless medley that I could find, Aerith is always shown as Rosa. That I could find is a pretty glaring and even fatal caveat, but that's because while I am an insane person, I cannot scrape the entire internet for every time that Square Enix has promoted Rebirth showing Loveless footage, and more importantly, when you compare my list of recordings to the official tour schedule's list of locations, it's obviously far from complete. The simple truth with that is some locations I couldn't find even a single clip, most of them I could find snippets of the performance, but not of the Loveless medley, and I'm sure some locations just prohibited recording. Cloud, Barrett, Aerith, Nanaki, and Kate Sith are always in the performance no matter what, and each receive an award for their part. They are all pretty normal except for Aerith's, whose flavor text mentions being an actress, making a debut in Loveless, or portraying a princess depending on which language you're playing in. Those are all things she did not necessarily have to do in order to receive that award, and yet it's a mistake present in every language I could change my game's text to. Since it's only text and not an actual texture someone would have to redraw, or something you would have to get an actor back in the booth to amend, this wouldn't be hard to patch at all. Aerith's role might be expanded in certain versions of Loveless, but there is still a static role she fills with no promises to keep. They've had over a year to make the text reflect that, but they haven't done it. There are 6 possible Chapter 12 date partners in Rebirth. Aerith being your date causing her to play Rosa makes sense since the same happens for Tifa or Yuffie if you date them. However, as mentioned, Barrett, Nanaki, and Kate Sith always appear as their characters no matter what, and getting any one of them as your date will result in Aerith being cast as Rosa, even if she is not the girl you have the most affinity with. The twirl when Alfred chooses Rosa as his beloved has an additional camera angle if Aerith is Rosa, and only if Aerith is Rosa. This camera angle is small fry though. I actually want to go over the subtle choreography of this scene and how it differs between the 3 girls, because there is a crucial difference that I think goes unnoticed by most people. This twirl is hardly a dance, but it follows the same laws, especially because of the old-style performance that the entirety of Loveless is evoking. Dancers try to have nice lines, meaning they always try to keep their limb and body posture fluid and aesthetically pleasing. In the end pose of the twirl before the would-be kiss, Cloud and Aerith's hands are parallel to one another, and Aerith is bracing her hand on the back of Cloud's shoulder so it's out of view of the camera. With Tifa, Cloud's fingers are slouched and she is visibly grabbing his shoulder. With Yuffie, Cloud's fingers are overextended and she is very visibly grabbing his shoulder to support herself. This visible grip atop Cloud's shoulder also causes Tifa and Yuffie's versions to have a subtle droop that Aerith's doesn't have. The other detail is in relation to the twirl itself and how it varies. This isn't really a point toward Aerith so much as a point against the other 2 versions. Remember what I said earlier? Hardly a dance, but follows the same laws. The person doing the rotation is the one who initiates the motion and does something called spotting their head, where they choose a point to look at and stare at it instead of letting their head follow the same movement as their body to avoid getting dizzy. Aerith only does this once because the twirl is being done correctly, but Yuffie, amateur as everything else about her version of Loveless is, still spots her head 4 or 5 times. I'm saying this because this motion right here is the appropriate way to initiate something like this. Tifa never gets into this position and barely gets the chance to spot her head because she hesitates for a few seconds and then Cloud does the biggest no-no there is. Instead of letting her initiate the movement and exchanging momentum, he grabs and pulls. She's not ready, so her head follows the same motion as her body for most of the time that she's moving. From the lines to the actual choreography, the whole thing is rushed and worse looking for it. The only thing really going for this version is that Cloud actually keeps his hands on Tifa as she moves, but with everything that's off about this version, I should hope that at least one thing is getting done right. When we compare these, that'd be only 1 solid point for Tifa's version, 2 points for Yuffie initiating motion and spotting correctly, but not a point for the actual movement because Cloud's just letting her fly free. As for Aerith, she initiates the motion she spots, and you're really not supposed to take your hands off your partner, but Cloud does at least generally frame Aerith as she moves, and since we have such an extreme wrong as Yuffie's version, we'll say this is worth like half a point. The song competition Aerith entered No Promises to Keep into was titled Thou Art Rosa. This point is self-explanatory, and yes, that is its name in Japanese as well. The Rebirth Ultimania and Material Ultimania have concept art of Tifa and Aerith in the Rosa dress, and both are drawn in the dress with the same length and fit, just dusting the floor, softly framing the body. In-game, Tifa's feet are clearly visible, while Yuffie's is mostly correct, but at points it clips into the floor, and in the ending shot, it's pooling around her feet. Aerith is the only one portrayed with the appropriate dress length throughout, and when the Rosa dress is stripped of all of its collar and harness details, it's exactly the same as the No Promises to Keep gown from the hips to the floor. I'm comfortable saying that the design was finalized on Aerith, but because Tifa fills the dress differently and has little extra details, she was also drawn in it. Little bits and bobs that are mainstays of the outfit are drawn next to Aerith alongside the hairpin unique to her portrayal of Rosa, while Tifa's art only has her unique earring and metal hairband drawn separately. It's possible I'm off the mark, but Yuffie doesn't have any details unique to her version, and she isn't drawn in the Rosa gown at all. And Rosa's tiara is drawn with a curvature that, both in concept art and in-game, follows Aerith's bangs and crests between them pretty much perfectly. The last thing is that Rosa was designed as a staff wielder, but Aerith is quite deliberately the only one shown to hold Rosa's staff correctly in the ending shot of Loveless. Tifa's arm stance is entirely inverted, and Yuffie isn't even trying. The previous point about the similarities between the Rosa gown and the songstress gown might have you arguing that it's to save time and resources, if not for the fact that in Loveless itself, Tifa and Yuffie both have broken dress physics, Aerith does not. In footage from pretty close to the game's release, there's oddities like the ribbon on the back of Yuffie's dress just really not liking to exist, and this little treat. If you're unsure what the hell is going on here, the positioning of Cloud's leg is actually making him clip into the bottom of the gown, so its physics are freaking out and dimpling up, fully exposing Yuffie's leg in the process. At the time I captured my own footage, the game had been patched to mostly fix this, save for the ribbon still experiencing some issues. I was able to find 3 videos posted between late March and early April that had this bug, but I also found a video from March 3rd that didn't have this bug, meaning Yuffie's physics were potentially patched within 4 days of the game's initial release. Tifa doesn't share Yuffie's ribbon issues in this older version, but you know what issue it does have? Tifa's dress physics aren't even on. The bottom of the dress has very minor physics for the shot of Rosa walking through the halls of the prison at the beginning, but the dress itself has nothing. Where there should be a curve here, there's this weird jaggedness, and it's also catching the light incorrectly. It's not just noticeable here. Put it against Aerith and Yuffie's versions, where the gown pleats up on itself during the twirl, while Tifa's remains completely static. But hey, this is old footage. They fixed Yuffie's issues, so they probably patched this. Let's have a look at mine. Oh. To add insult to injury, Aerith and Yuffie's versions are both nicely centered in front of this door in the background with 2 sconces that nicely frame the shot. In Tifa's version, it's entirely off-center. This new angle causes the sconces to get completely obscured by the pillars, and this sconce that isn't even in the normal shot to be visible. This dress, its physics, and the choreography of Loveless were made with only one of these characters truly intended to be seen in it. There's strength to the previous points, but to really seal the deal, I'll have to make an even bolder claim. Aerith is the canon Rosa because her Chapter 12 date is canon. Weakest point first. Every version of the Skywheel begins with the same wide shot, and there's 2 other wide shots in the middle that all the dates share, but each date gets at least 1 unique shot of the Skywheel throughout. The icon of the achievement you get for completing Chapter 12 is the wide shot unique to Aerith's dates. In the Rebirth Material Ultimania, the version of Cloud's offstage moment during No Promises to Keep in which he catches a flower petal and holds it to his chest is the only one to be storyboarded. This only happens if you date Aerith. In the Rebirth Ultimania, the writers retroactively established a rule about the affinity system that Aerith is effectively immune to. That rule being, they don't want the player's choices to affect the story, so all the branch scenes should be considered outside the main scenario. And yet, Cloud and Aerith's main scenario dialogue in Chapter 14 will change slightly if you dated her in Chapter 8 or 12 versus if you didn't date her at all.
Next time.
Oh? Next time?
I mean, why not?
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Next time.
If you're about to argue this is to give the player the option of not romancing Aerith, Cloud just spent the entire day on a date with Aerith and insinuated they would go on more before that diverging response to her teasing him for that insinuation.
Well, you'll have to give me a harder one next time.
Oh? Next time?
This last point is a lot. I am not musically trained in any way, but I know several people who are that have corroborated what is being said in this thread written by Dizzy Shark, who is a very dear nakama that I did run this portion of the script by just to make sure I didn't fuck anything up as I was trimming out the fat from his thread into something that is more approachable. After nearly 2 hours on the phone, I am now equipped with everything I need to get through this portion. Final Fantasy VII makes use of a lot of musical motifs, particularly quotes or offshoots of the main theme, which, yes, is Cloud's theme. Cloud's theme is in the key of E major, and Dizzy has split it into two halves, the most pertinent being the more heroic-sounding first section that is most identifiable to anyone familiar with the game. Then the more dark and brooding second section, which he has also transcribed, but it has no relevance. Just before we proceed, Dizzy has actual musical training, and has outlined things well if you already understand music, and while you can generally understand his thread if you don't know anything about music, I'm going to give a brief rundown on the important terms, just to avoid getting swept away in a bunch of random words. The leading tone is the 7th note in the musical scale from the key the piece is in. The musical scale is 8-letter notes, and your leading tone can be easily found by going forward 7 letters or back 1 letter. An interval is how many letter notes or staff positions span between 2 notes. A staff position is a point on or between the lines of the staff where the notes sit. In the original game, any date except Barrett's would result in the same theme playing in the background, which is a variation of Cloud's theme. It's in D major, making our desired tone a C sharp, with the positions of the first and second portions swapped. You probably noticed that Theme 1's quote wasn't exact. We'll come back to that. Rebirth is a bit different, and if you get the high affinity version of a date, the theme of your date partner will bookend the piece. The version of Words Drowned Out that plays with any of the girls is most like the original, while Barrett and Nanaki have a similar theme with a guitar and harmonica backing them. Then there's the Womp Womp date, which we won't be covering. Tifa's date, Aerith's date, and Yuffie's date all share two things: a prominent swell of the strings, and a pause before a sudden conclusion, or switching over to their theme. Now, let's revisit the original piece and look closer at the quote of Theme 1 it contains. This phrase Dizzy has highlighted here is the most relevant portion of Cloud's theme, with this interval between the first and fourth notes spanning 7 letters in the music scale and where we hit that leading tone. Now, here's what that first portion of Words Drowned Out sounds like without any of the frills of the actual piece getting in the way. When Cloud's theme plays, it's just shy of that leading tone, causing a lot of unresolved anticipation in the listener. In Rebirth, Tifa's date has a painful level of anticipation because it just keeps going up. It's threatening to be Cloud's theme. Then it cuts to deafening silence, and either ends or leaves you hanging as it switches to Tifa's theme. In Yuffie's date, that pronounced swell is straight up auditory edging because it happens like it's heading somewhere. Then it just keeps going like nothing happened. Finally, with Aerith, she grabs his arm and we get what we're looking for. We land on our C sharp, finally giving us a complete and unaltered version of the melody from Cloud's theme, and hit a dominant 7th. If you don't know what the hell a dominant 7th is, it's okay, Dizzy had to explain it to me like a million times. A dominant 7th chord is, in summary, it's 4 notes that are each 3-letter notes apart. 1, 3, 5, and 7. A dominant 7th's first note is the same as the key, so our dominant 7th is 1, D, 3, F, 5, A, and 7, C. In music, it is very dramatic, and the absolute last thing you want to do at this moment is change keys. Aerith's theme is in the key of D, making it the perfect theme to bookend this moment. So, even if we hit our dominant 7th in both versions of her date, the high affinity version is not only the most complete sounding, but the most musically appropriate. Not to mention that the Ever Crisis Rebirth crossover event didn't show any version of their date, but we still hear a certain theme. The high affinity version. If you're here at the end to type up a comment about the kiss, let's take a quick moment to address that. The previously mentioned comment from the writers about the dates being outside the main scenario comes from page 734 of the Rebirth Ultimania and was made in direct response to a question about the kiss, where they established the aforementioned rule about the dates being outside the main scenario, then immediately expressed concern that the affinity system may cause confusion, and even admitted that they added the kiss because fans have only been able to imagine it until now, which is a very weird reason. We have a whole 3rd game left for them to save that for, except that there has been a soft continuity from Remake to Rebirth, and there's even traces of intended branch decisions throughout Rebirth, like Remake before it, that I wouldn't be at all surprised to see referenced in Part 3, which Hamaguchi has said will not have an affinity system. He also took the time to correct misinformation about a Japanese word for a female character archetype that he used to describe Aerith, which had been maliciously misread by people as Cloud and Aerith's relationship being sibling-like rather than romantic. In this correction, he stated that it is not their default setting as creators to come out and tell you what any character's relationship is with the other. They do that through the content. He was just coming out to say what their relationship is not. Interesting about content, because what happened a week later? The Ever Crisis Rebirth crossover event where Aerith is Cloud's date no matter what. I recognize that claim about continuity is a very strong one, but it really doesn't gel well anywhere, least of all at the end of this video. I don't want to try and condense a tangent and a half into just a few minutes, so I've laid the bones of a separate video on that topic, which I may or may not actually see through, I don't know. There's a lot of surface to cover. To tail end this, I'd like to say that I am not a super self-righteous sort. If you have anything with which to fact-check me, I welcome it. Being wrong is helpful information. Learning what something isn't can help you close in on what it is. Case in point? After seeing this, I retract everything I just said. Vincent is the Canon, Rosa. Everybody else go home.